Following a meeting with the president and congressional leaders, House Speaker Boehner says the group outlined what he called a framework for compromise on the fiscal cliff. Republicans apparently willing to put revenue on the table if accompanied by appropriate spending cuts. Joining us now is Congressman Louie Gohmert of Texas. He was just reelected to a 5th term. He's vice chair of the House Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, Homeland Security, and served previously as Chief Justice for the Texas 12th Court of Appeals. Great to have you with us, Congressman. Let's start with...
Always good to be with you.
Let's start with first the fiscal cliff, then I want to go to your call for a special prosecutor on Benghazi. But going to the fiscal cliff, the Speaker making it very clear that he's going to approach this negotiation with the White House on the cliff very positively, with some sense at least of accommodation, potential accommodation, if his terms are met. That's pretty positive stuff, don't you think?
Well, it is positive, but there's a lot of pressure right now, and of course pressure is what you can use to take carbon and make diamonds. This is the time to be bold. This is not the time to be defensive, and I'm glad the Speaker has come forward with a proposal. But the thing is, we ought to be taking the President's words and sticking them back with him. He wants everybody to pay their fair share. Let's do it. Let's have capital gains, 15%. Let's have income tax, 15%. Gift tax, 15%. Let's make sure that Warren Buffett finally starts paying at least as much as his secretary in the percentage. And what has been proposed here by the President will not have Warren Buffett paying the same as his secretary in percentage. Let's have a flat tax, Lou. Let's take the President at his word. If you make more, you'll pay more, and this is the only way that's going to happen.
You know, I believe the Speaker Boehner, perhaps the President himself, may have been talking to you, talking to Steve Forbes and others when they talked about the possibility of reforming the entire tax code. That would get everyone...
This is a great time.
I'm sorry?
This is a great time. You know, this is the kind of time that could...
Yeah,
and not only that, let's don't forget, the last time that the Senate had a budget, it was when Harry Reid worked with his friend Speaker Pelosi, and nobody in the 2008 budget complained that it wasn't spending enough money. Let's go back to 2008, $2.5 trillion, and that cuts off $1 trillion in spending right there.
Well, there are all sorts of ways to get there, as you suggest here tonight, and as have suggested in other forums as well. But the idea that this President and Boehner are coming together to have at least a civil discourse over what in the world we're going to do about this fiscal cliff. 6 weeks remain. Are you any more hopeful as a result of the tone that they've taken on this first day of discussions?
Well, I wasn't hopeful with the President's tone when he said...
you are partisan in this thing, are you, Congressman? Are you being partisan here?
I'm not being partisan. I'm being objective when I say that the President proposed $1.6 trillion in new revenue. He wants to destroy the economy. Come on. Well, who in their right mind is going to allow that kind of increase to just devastate the economy? It won't be just Hostess that's going out of business.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. It's interesting to me, no one down there is talking about the fact that individual tax payments, taxpayer payments to the Internal Revenue Service, federal receipts from those taxpayers have risen 26% under the Bush tax cuts over the past 2 years, which tells us that the answer here. But I'm a simple fellow, and I just kind of want to see how. I'd like to see everybody start talking to each other. Let me turn to Benghazi, this idea of a special prosecutor. There is a sense of helplessness that is palpable in Washington, D.C. right now, because I don't believe the Congress feels that it has the strength or the tools to actually penetrate the veil of denial and secrecy and opaqueness that is this administration when it comes to what it has done and witnessed the last 9 weeks. Now, you're calling for a special prosecutor, and the fellow's got to do that works for the President of the United States. What do you think the odds are?
The Attorney General, that's right, the Attorney General has to do it. We have the tools.
Can you really see Eric Holder saying, you know what, Congressman Gohmert, I think you've got a splendid idea, and what we're going to do is we're going to investigate ourselves?
Yeah, well, if he doesn't appoint a special prosecutor, someone to do an independent investigation, then what you have is the very people who have floated the idea of prosecuting General Petraeus for adultery in the military. There's all kinds of things been floated that they might do to him. There's all kinds of pressure that can be brought to bear.
Are you saying that you don't think, as I was speaking earlier with former CIA operative Gary Bernstein, you don't think it's a coincidence that all of this hell started raining down on David Petraeus' head as soon as he issued, against the wishes of the administration, a CIA timeline on Benghazi, do you?
No, this is exactly, and I love your sarcasm. It's one of the reasons I love you, Lou, but that's exactly the problem. And the way that we do have the tools is, number one, we have the purse strings. If it becomes a Department of Injustice, we have the power to defund it. And when it's clearly being used to exact injustice, it's time to defund the parts of it that are being unjust. We have that power. And the other thing that is so great about America, when the American people rise up and say, this is crazy, people were crying for help and nobody did anything. You know, Hillary's commercial about who do you want answering the phone at 3 a.m., the answer we find out is, for heaven's sake, somebody answer the phone. And nobody did. The president goes to bed, people were being tortured and terrorized and killed, and he goes to bed. Who was acting president pro tem? Was it Valerie Jarrett? We need to know, because I tell you what, we're going to find out that the protocol requires that when an ambassador becomes under attack, he has to know within 10 minutes who was notified. President pro tem Jarrett? Who? We need to know, and this Attorney General is not going to do it. The American people need to rise up and make it clear we need an independent investigation.
Congressman Louie Gohmert, as always, good talking with you. Thanks for being here.
Always good, Lou. Always good to talk to you.
Coming up Monday, retired Pacific Fleet Commander